Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 38 of the Unchained Vodcast. Today, we are talking about Arthurians, the Arthurian realm, the
best
classes, at least the
best
classes and abilities and stuff that we know about so far. What type of synergies we think there are going to be between classes, what we're excited about, what we think the strategies are going to be like, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, you just have the usual crew here, the three of us. We did try to get another Arthurian guild leader on show, as we're going to try to do with the TDD and the Vikings. I asked two different guild leaders, and neither one could make it, so I had to do some flying across country this week, so I gave up. But we're here, and hopefully that'll be enough.
Counts.
Yes.
Yeah. We're Arthurians, so we've at least got opinions about that.
And you're a guild leader, so that's fine. You fit the bill.
You count.
So I guess to start us off, what I want to ask everybody, of course, chat and you two as well, is of the Arthurian classes, which one do you think is the most interesting and why?
Oh, why? I wasn't ready for the why part, but
Ooh, gotta have reasons.
at least not strategically why. My favorite has become the Abbot for reasons such as what you're drinking right now.
It's actually wine.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
just
what
a
I'm
mug.
drinking.
The beer, no. I like the melee support hybrid. I've played classes that have been melee and had some types of support through mitigation, but not the kind of support that the Abbot is providing, and that intrigues me, along with the theme of the almost the monk-like beer alcoholic fighter, you know.
Damage boost.
Yeah, that'd be my reason. So
Cool. Let's see. We got Bard, Abbott.
I've tried for the last few days to decide on a class because it's a tie between three classes for me. In terms of hype and of coolness, I'd say the Enchanted Knight, just because it's
I consider it.
shapeshifter.
it's different.
Definitely. In terms of strategy, I've been lately reconsidering getting my changing the class for my combatant class from the archer. I love the longbow and all that, but the more I think about it, the more the flame warden appeals to me. Like it sounds to me like the artillery, living artillery,
Yeah,
throwing fireballs miles away to destroy siege engines or castle doors or castle walls. Appeals to
glass
me a lot.
cannon.
I like the glass cannon. I've played a rogue for a long time, and in EQ, a rogue is a glass cannon. But in the Flame Warden is kind of the same. And from so far what they've been telling us about the Flame Warden and the way it's going to work, it sounds a lot like living artillery, where you're on the back line and hammering the front lines and the healers of the other realms from afar.
Yeah, I think a lot of more modern style PvP is so arena type based and focused on mobility that we've lost kind of that connection with what it means to be a real glass cannon, and seeing that is surely interesting and sounds exciting.
Really have large scope combat.
Hmm
We got a lot of stuff here for Abbott, Physician. I did think about the Physician as well because the potions are just cool.
They are.
It's okay if wine made you late. I'm just drinking my wine on the show, so that's fine.
And I like
for me
with Physician that supposedly it's the hardest of the three healers, so that'll be interesting for the Arthurians.
Yeah, for me, the and actually, before I go into mine, I actually think that's important too, because if the Physician is a little bit more challenging than the other two healers, I actually think that's important because the Arthurians, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, but the Arthurians are so kind of tanky that it does make sense for them to maybe have a little bit of a issue with the healing as well. A little challenge with that, so it's not so overloaded. Anyway, for me, it's the Dreadcaller, because what's cooler than a Necromancer? Everyone loves a Necromancer class, and I'm very excited that the Arthurians get to have what is essentially the Necromancer. But also, it comes down to lore. As you both know, I'm really big into lore and story and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of a sucker for that. So it came out with the. I'm not gonna play a Dreadcaller as my main character, but they came out with it and they're like, they're Dreadcaller and he summons the souls of the wicked and so on and so forth as penance. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I like it.
On top of that,
every bit of it.
each of the different types of summons is a different role to play. Like there's a tank version, there's I think a ranged DPS,
Yes.
and even a melee DPS, and just being able to switch between the roles is pretty cool.
Now, to flip that really quickly, what is your least favorite class?
Oh man, wasn't ready for that one either.
For me, physician, but that's mostly because I'm not a healer. I've never been a healer in any MMO, and for the most part, I don't know how this one will work, but for the most part, I don't like the mechanics of healing as a player. So this healing doesn't appeal to me. So yeah, that's mostly why. In terms of lore, I don't know actually, because most of them are actually pretty nice. The Black Knights are kind of like, I won't say it's my least favorite lore, but it is the most classical one, the most overused one, kind of, and that's why I would place it also close to the physician on that.
I'm gonna go with the Veil Stalker for mine, but I'll preface that with saying I think they're all really cool. All the classes. I'm not gonna complain. It's not that I think the Veil Stalker just sucks, because I don't. Kind of the same reasoning. Like it's the most traditional of the three stealther classes as far as being most like a rogue.
That's why I like it.
and I've always hated rogues. Everything else just kind of has something else to them, I feel, that is not so overused, not so common.
What I'm laughing about is that all three of us have essentially the same logic for why we don't like a given class, but it's a different class every time. Because for me, my least favorite is actually the Flame Warden, and because I think it's the most vanilla, overdone class of it's basically I am a mage. That's what the Flame Warden is. I'm a freaking mage. The Veil Stalker can at least jump through the veil and stuff, which is a little bit different.
Slightly, I guess.
He's just like, I cast fireballs and magic missile, and I stand here, and that's what I do because I'm a fire mage.
I guess that means, in a sense, all of the classes have something about them that are very traditional, which is what the Arthurians are entirely about, but there's still this unique flavor to each one of them.
I agree. And MJ said about that also, that the Arthurians are more your typical fantasy classes and realm, if only by default, because the Arthurian realm has been, the Arthurian mythology has been written about
so many times,
filmed, games so many times that it's hard to use it without making you feel like it's been overused.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. Most MMOs, for whatever their lore is, they're basically based not so much on Arthurian lore, but they're basically based on medieval European Arthurian concepts of combat and classes.
Right.
That's what they are. So to try to think that they're going to be crazy and out there is a little bit unlikely. But it was just funny to me that we all basically gave the exact same reason, but for a different class. So what, to me, I think we're all going to agree on this, but I'm leaving it open in case somebody surprises me, I guess. What do you think, or how would you describe the overall realm strategy for the Arthurians and how you think that's going to play out?
Well, I've always said, since they unveiled some of the classes, I've always said one of my dreams to see eventually is a turtle formation from the Black Knights. So it's to me, that's the idea of the Arthurian strategy is either hunker down and survive and weather the storm, or charge like the Roman legion, basically overwhelm them with survivability, with tankiness, literally, and just overpower them just by sheer force and sheer survivability, rather than trying to be. You can be smarter in your fighting, but the way the realm and the classes are built is more the strategy of overpowering the other realms rather than trying to go for skirmishes or working around their weaknesses like
Mm-hmm.
some of the other realms. For me, the Arthurians, the strength they have is actually playing on their strength rather than trying to exploit the weaknesses of their enemies.
Yeah, I think that boils down to their versatility in the three different ranges. You have short range, medium range, long range.
Mm-hmm.
They have classes that fulfill all three, and excel at fulfilling all three, versus other realms come across as more attack driven and not necessarily focusing on a melee range, but
Mm-hmm.
they come in more from the side, flanking you as a melee range kind of, and then dealing with other ranges, medium and long range, as the battle continues, where Arthurians just come across as that legion of troops who takes a formation out in the open field, and you can clearly see their formation with melee up front, medium range, and then archers and flame wardens kind of in the back. Like they're there presenting themselves as, this is what we are, come at us. They don't have to hide behind anything, and they play to their strengths of the different ranges.
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about it in terms of essentially the three ranges of the combat. But if you think about it, at least from how we understand it, the Arthurians, in my mind, are each realm, I guess, could be seen as almost focusing on two of the three ranges. The Arthurians are very much long range focused and short melee range focused. Like they've got strong close and really far. That whole mid range is probably a bit of a gray area where they're not going to be as powerful. Whereas you look at like the Vikings, they're perhaps more medium and close. They at long range they don't seem to have a whole lot, but as they get in, they get progressively stronger. Whereas the TDD are probably seem to be able to move between
medium
all three, but maybe
Yeah.
medium to long a little bit more so than anything else.
Yeah, they seem less strong in melee
Mm-hmm.
For most of their classes. The only
They really want
one
to engage at that
for
medium
me
area.
the only one for me that would be strong in their realm for short range would be their enchanted knight. Well, their shapeshifter.
Yeah.
And their heavy fighter, but their heavy fighter is by definition a melee class. So
Yeah, every realm has classes that I think break that mold, that do get
Yes.
out of the standard mold a little bit. But I think the Arthurians seem to be very much, and Mark Jacobs has kind of portrayed them as that, as being defensive. They take a fortification, they have long range firepower, very tanky. Are there any combinations or different ways that you think, based on what we know right now, that they might be able to break out of that standard mode and operate outside of that standard kind of realm strategy?
Yeah, and I think it revolves almost entirely around the Black Knight, who at the moment is the only class with a gap closer, with his charge. And I think utilizing those offensively to initiate fights rather than to save friends or to save your guildmates is going to be kind of key in taking more of an offensive stance and starting the battle in a just downright aggressive force.
I was actually going to say the exact same thing. I even pictured it with a name as the sort of since it is very based on the knight, the sort of iron glove, the gauntlet strategy. in that they're not putting people through a gauntlet, but they're basically the iron fist that's just ramming out there to put a minstrel, for the speed boost. Abbot, because the abbots have damage buffs.
Yes.
And some of that passive and AoE healing and stuff that they can do, and then you pair them with Black Knights and Enchanted Knights, and I think you would have a very tough but still rather mobile melee force that could go out there and really kind of be like a bowling team, just get out there and really engage people very aggressively.
Yeah, combine that with that the Black Knight has been explained as something that isn't just a tank, is meant to deal as much damage as it can take. And they take a lot of damage. And you're looking at kind of the hybrid between, going back to say World of Warcraft, of a prot warrior with an arms warrior, kind of hybrided into one who's capable of really scaring some people.
Yeah, I think it will be possible to form very focused groups like that. I wasn't able to think of any other examples, but at least based around the Black Knight, it does seem like they might have the capability of making like a tougher, mobile kind of strike force type thing to work on the outskirts of the. Go ahead.
Yeah, especially with the Enchanted Knight that has the Griffin transformation, who's their speed transformation, allowing them to maybe be the first strike force with the rest of the force coming after them. I don't see these kind of more mobile strategies being very fit for like the Blackguard and the Flame Wardens that need to be set up before anything. But yeah, the rogues actually, the stealther might be, depending on how fast they can in and out of the veil, that will be the deciding factor. If getting in the veil and out of the veil takes a long time and cripples you, like they said it might, it will not work. But if you can pop in and out of the veil a lot faster, they can also be part of that kind of strike force that can be made more mobile and breaking the mold of the more entrenched strategies of the Arthurians.
I could see the Veilstalker in a support role, like not necessarily as the part of that same group, but maybe moving along nearby, flanking the enemies as they charge in and they come in from behind, and do things like that to support. I agree. The Blackguard and the Flame Warden, I can see people using them for ambush tactics, but still, that's a thing where like you sneak to somewhere, you get entrenched, you get emplaced, and then you use long range attacks to hit somebody. Not really moving with a very mobile group like that. I think they're going to be definitely slower to progress. Still fitting with the realm strategy of long range firepower and tankiness.
Yeah, I think the only aspect of the game that would counter any type of aggressive strategy from the Arthurians is group size, and that typically a larger group versus another larger group has in the past been more ranged oriented. It kind of has prevented melee players from succeeding too much, and hopefully the other things going into the game to prevent zergs and to prevent things like that
blocking,
give them more of that ability to take that kind of stance instead of be defensive.
I wonder if it brings up an interesting question for whether or not the Arthurians would do well in the depths. I mean, I could see the close melee range characters, while they are kind of defensive. I do think maybe the Black Knight and the Enchanted Knight and classes like that would do well. But I think the ranged characters would definitely, depending on how they design the caves and everything, they could potentially be very limited there because of their reliance on extreme range.
Yep.
Yeah. Keeping in mind, with no taunt, which you mentioned, there is no taunt skill, fighting any kind of, even though there's limited PvE, fighting any kind of PvE battle is probably going to be a little different in this game, knowing that there's no taunt skill. There isn't going to be, I don't think, a full-based aggro system.
I agree.
Because there's nothing to work with it.
The thing also that influenced that, and that made me kind of disagree with Aljovic there, is that we are still in the frame of mind of a tank for the heavy fighters. They are not tanks. They are tanky DPS classes, basically.
Mhm.
They do a lot of damage, more damage than any of the classical tank classes in other MMOs. So they might be able to tank aggro. And as I said in chat, they can also play the role of bodyguards for those range classes, where they can body block the mobs and also take physical damage by just getting in front of the mob and taking the damage for the other classes. So there are ways around. Yes, it will be complete different strategies than what we're used to in PvE fights in current MMOs, but there will be ways around that. It will be a whole new that makes it interesting, because it will be a whole new way of fighting to learn.
Yeah.
Now, for my next question, I want to bring up for everybody: what classes within the Arthurian realm do you think are going to have, or at least from what we can tell, or from what you suspect they may, what abilities you suspect they may have, might have the strongest synergies with each other outside of the obvious? Well, the healer heals the tank, so.
For me, I'll go first, because I just thought of one actually that didn't occur to me before, which is the Flame Warden and the Minstrel, or the Blackguards and the Minstrel, which is firing a whole round of projectiles and using the Minstrel to move very fast to a different position and firing again before the enemy can spot you.
That is true. Kind of hit and run Arthurian
Exactly.
strategy.
Because normally Blackguards and Flame Wardens are very slow-moving targets, very easy to reach for other classes when they want to disrupt them. With a Minstrel on their back, allowing them to move faster, strike and move, it makes it more interesting also strategically, to maybe be able to flank faster without being detected after you strike from another side of the battlefield, for example.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go with the Abbot and the Black Knight. In games, especially if you're duoing any kind of situation, you typically see kind of a really heavy tank type character with a healer, and the healer can't really do much except CC and support in those games. In this case, your healer or your support is doing a fair amount of moderate damage. It's also a different type of damage. It's magic damage in the case of the Abbot versus the Black Knight, which does mostly crushing damage. So you're doing two different types of damage that it's hard for someone to balance between the two. And the Abbot, if I recall, applies a buff. One of his runes applies a buff that reduces damage done on that person's next attack, which helps further the mitigation of the Black Knight. And the two of them together, having a healer that does damage with your tank, just I think improves that duo nature that you sometimes see going around.
Yeah, Wax got a good point here. I mean, the Spectre and the Blackguard, Spectre being able to mark targets, possibly even weaken them a bit.
Spectre also
blood drain ability and stuff.
Reduces the blood drain. Yeah, it pulls blood away.
And
so
actually, and as he said, also Blackguard and Veilstalker. Blackguards setting up their spot, and Veilstalker being able to protect them and patrol the area around them to avoid them being ambushed.
Or aggressively, the Veilstalker picking a target, and then the Blackguard being able to hit them with the initial volley before they pop out and do the finishing blow on them. I had a couple myself.
I've got another one too.
Okay, I've got three combinations.
Let's see what you got. It might be one of mine.
I'll do my first one, and then I'll let you go. My first one was the Minstrel and the Enchanted Knight. Because, at least from the abilities we can see, the Minstrel can actually buff disease and poison damage, and we know one of the Enchanted Knight's forms does poison and disease damage. So that's what I was thinking also with that whole like gauntlet, iron glove concept. With including the Enchanted Knights was because if you have a bard, a Minstrel in there, they can be buffing their damage, their AoE damage on the enemies while everyone else is rolling in.
So my other one would be the Dreadcaller and the Black Knight as well. Black Knight seems to be one of my favorites. But the Dreadcaller being a a very versatile class, and switching between tanky minion, DPS, melee DPS minion, range DPS minion, can duo with a Black Knight and kind of pick how he wants to play based off of what you're going against. If it's a 2v2 situation, the Dreadcaller has the advantage in being able to change his own tactic to work with the Black Knight better.
That's true. You could also say the same thing of the Enchanted Knight as well, since he can shift from DPS to a more tanky role or to kind of a mage type role to be more versatile. My other two, the first one is the Abbot and the Blackguard. Because the Blackguard is very, very long-range sniper kind of focused, long-range archer. Lots of prep time for really high burst damage, whereas the Abbot can also apply damage buffs. So I could see people standing there with Blackguards, Abbots buffing them, applying damage buffs for their first shot. They do the super long-range sniper shot, and all of a sudden, just stacking damage buffs on top of damage buffs as much as you can to get those initial sniper damage out. Then, lastly, is hopefully Black Knight and Black Knight having synergy together, because they do have one ability. It's their Death Curse that strengthens each other. I'm still hopeful we will see some things like the shield wall abilities and things of that nature that will have some sort of synergistic benefit between them working together, whereas the other classes don't really get quite as much necessarily for working together, except maybe the mage.
The Abbot and
still
Abbot.
the whole group ritual concept.
Abbot.
That's
We'll
Team
share
Abbott.
beers.
Team Abbott, heal everybody. Everyone heal.
Now, my last question in this whole topic is, what do you see as the biggest weakness for the Arthurians?
Well, the first is the physician being potentially the most challenging of the healers, given the healing being, at least for Arthurians and even the Vikings, being aiming. You have to aim to heal.
Yes.
You're throwing your potions, and those potions are affected by physics. They're affected by the air system. Mastering that in a way that lets your team be the defensive team it's supposed to be is going to define whether a group, whether it's an 8-man group or more, succeeds.
As Old Boy just said, mobility is definitely a problem.
Yes,
I think they would definitely have the least mobility. So go ahead.
Now that was what I was about to mention. It's going to condition a lot of the engagement the Arthurians are going to go in, whether they decide to attack or not, depending on how they can set themselves up. Because once you're committed as an Arthurian, once you're committed to a fight, contrary to Vikings and TDDs, you cannot back out as easily because of the lack of mobility, and depending on the terrain also, you might not be able to back out, and you can hunker down. Yeah, you can survive. Yes, but if you get overwhelmed, you can't rely on a skirmish and guerrilla tactics as much as the other realms can.
Yeah,
as Oldovic said, the physician's mobile, but there's always like one or two classes in each of these realms that I think break the general mold. But the physician can't run out of the battle by himself. He's going to get killed.
No. In fact, the physician is, if anything, the most mobile of the three healers, which I think also adds to the complexity of it, is that he has to be mobile. You can't stand there and heal.
You can't throw a potion on the other side of the battlefield. You're going to have to move closer.
Yeah. Even the Vikings, who are also an aiming-based healing, has a rock that they can just set and just kind of stand there and let it do its thing,
it's because of the mobility issue that's not I have a different weakness that I want to talk about, but it's because of the mobility issue that I actually think the TDD is going to be the most dangerous faction for the Arthurians, because they are the most mobile and the most versatile. They can jump between roles. They can do different CC effects. I can see the TDD being very good at bogging down the Arthurians and just rooting them and getting them stuck in places and then just moving in and out of
chipping
combat.
away at the sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, the Vikings are good, really good, strong, but the Arthurians have the long range, and they've still got a lot of close range strength as well. So they want to move in and out of combat. I could see the Vikings and the Arthurians going at each other kind of on equal stances all day. But I could see the TDD being, when well organized, being a big problem for. For my weakness, I was going to say, and it kind of goes into that as well, the lack of versatility and adaptability. As it stands, I don't think anyone would argue that the Arthurians are the least versatile realm. Yeah. They have very good long-range damage. They have some really good heavy hitters in close range. But most of their classes do, like, one thing.
Yes.
The mage freaking shoots long-range fireballs. The archer shoots long-range arrows. The Black Knight can be DPS a little bit, or he's a heavy fighter. He's not like necessarily has to be a tank. But they kind of have a very defined role, whereas the Vikings have a couple more classes that, even their archer can go, I still have a sword if I have to. And the TDD, like, that's kind of their whole shtick. So I could see that lack of versatility also causing some major issues.
Yes.
Where they have difficulty getting outside of their focus role for a realm.
Right. I mean, even the Enchanted Knight, while it has different forms it can cycle through, most of its damage is still a bleed type damage. Even if it's a different element, it's still a bleed at the end of the day. They're a dot-based class.
Yeah.
The whole realm is very focused on outlasting everyone else.
Yeah.
Which will make them a nightmare to attack. If they're holding a keep, the Arthurians will just be a nightmare to attack and take keep from.
Sieging an Arthurian keep is going to be a nightmare.
Which, if any of you guys, most of us, I think, watched Friday's stream, yesterday's stream. They talked about one of the questions in the Q&A was about taking over islands and the speed at which it happens. And Ben, through Mark, and his yes and no's and his whispering, mentioned that there's actually penalties for losing control of things.
Yes.
So the Arthurians have more incentive to be defensive. They're already defensive. They have more incentive now to build up their forces to defend rather than to go out.
Yeah, and on the versatility thing, my last point I wanted to make on adaptability is the Shapeshifter is the most adaptable and versatile class in all three of the realms. The Arthurian Shapeshifter is notably less adaptable than both the other realms. I mean, they can shift form, but they're incentivized to stay in one form.
The longer they're in the form, the more damage they do.
Yeah.
If anything, the Dreadcaller is the most adaptable of the damage dealing classes on our side.
Yeah. And no, I'm not drinking beer. I'm drinking Moscato, actually. Wine.
Like we mentioned, the Enchanted Knight does all dot-based damage in different ways, but it is meant to kind of cycle through the forms, but to maintain one of those forms for as long as it can before switching to a different one.
That does bring up another interesting question. How many classes in the Arthurian side have damage over time abilities that are pretty prominent? I think the Blackguard seems like it had like a dot, like a poison arrow or something maybe. That was mentioned, I think.
The Veilstalker, I'm looking at it right now, I think.
What rogue doesn't have a dot?
Right.
The Shapeshifter definitely does. That was like, it seemed like a very prominent thing.
The Flame Warden doesn't.
Yeah,
it does fire damage, so I would be surprised if the fire didn't do some damage over time.
Yes.
Burn damage.
The Veilstalker has an arcane brief damage over time effect.
The Spectre can drain blood, which isn't necessarily
over
a dot,
time,
but
it's still hurtful.
It's over time. It's still over time.
Oh, it is over time? Okay.
It is a dot, yes. Yeah. It is. It's a siphon, so yeah, it's a dot.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. What else we got here? I don't think the Abbot has any dots.
No. It does damage mitigation.
However, I think the Abbot... I think the abbot's death curse or something could make your wounds permanent, which isn't really a dot, but
Well-
definitely prevents you from healing beyond that.
Yeah, that and also the radiant smite is actually something. It says lingering in the area, so if
Oh.
it's not a damage over time, but it's a buff over time also.
Yeah, so it does seem like the Arthurians may intentionally be geared towards some effect over time abilities. Perhaps a little bit more so than the Vikings. Maybe not more so than the TDD, because I think they had some as a fair
They have
amount
some
as well.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, they have
They're,
a lot of dots also. Yeah, dots,
Their different class
siphons.
has them. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
they do. I forget. I made that article on our forums of the 3 different realms. I know, if I recall, they do a lot of kind of death and poison type abilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it seems like the probably the TDD and the Arthurians are probably going to be the most heavily focused in the dot category, whereas the Vikings are probably just more of a sustained DPS.
Yeah. Or actually burst DPS.
Burst
More
and
for
sustain,
Vikings,
yeah.
Yeah.
For the TDD, it's also in their lore basically, or in their style of fight. They ambush you, they flank you, apply a poison, and retreat while the poison takes effect, and just starts chipping at you like that regularly, rather than trying for a direct engagement. So
That could actually be the better strategy for the Arthurians for defending against the TDD, since they also have some dots, is to rely more on dots when facing the TDD.
Yeah.
So then if they come in the skirmish, you can go, okay, well, we're poisoning you as well, so have
Yeah.
fun with that.
You can retreat, but you're still going to take all this dot damage too.
Yeah.
Which is going to make them have to like wait a little longer till their next guerrilla,
Exactly.
ambush, and
Yeah.
by then you've hopefully outlasted and healed up. And
Well, does anybody else have any other things they wanted to bring up for the Arthurians?
we haven't talked about races for the
Yeah.
Arthurians. Every realm has its own set of
Yeah.
races as well.
Yeah, but we just don't really know the concretes of Banes and Boons, so I hadn't thought about it, but...
True.
Well, what's your favorite? I know what you're playing, but what is your favorite race
It's the Sturm. I want some
And
Sturm
why?
lore.
and why?
Because
How
they're
about that?
dragons and they have wings on their butts. That's all I need. I want lore for the dragon people.
The one thing you notice also, we talked about the fact that the Arthurians are the more classical faction. We are the faction that has the most human-like
Humans, yeah.
races. We have 3
True.
human-like races. Well, they're humans. Actually, they're not even human-like. They're humans. Storm Riders are humans, just with they went through the veil and have a jewel on their forehead. And the Picts just have tattoos, but they're humans also.
Yeah. If you look at the golems, they're basically human constructs.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read. I don't know if the lore is out for the golem becoming
Oh, yeah.
stories.
There's
Gargoyles
yeah.
started as human-made statues and then
Mhm.
gained life, and even cats, are human domesticated animals. So the only oddity there
They're
is the
humanoids.
Yeah.
Humanoid cats, yeah.
right, but the idea of a cat is a domesticated human thing. So the Sturm, the dragon species, humanoid as well. They just seem out of place almost.
But they're very
they're
Arthurian,
all
very dragon-y.
humanoids. Contrary to some of the other realms, they're whole humanoids races.
Hmm.
If you look at the, for example, at the Vikings, some of them are like the. Well, we don't know much about it, but the
Well, I do
Ulfenards,
believe they've
are-
mentioned that they're going to add more humanoid races as well. Though,
Yes.
For other realms. So.
But yeah, the Ulfenar we don't know a lot about, but they will be a bit out of there, just like the Fearbog and the Binchit in the TDDs. TDDs also have a lot of humanoid race actually, because the
Nature
Tuaha,
humanoid,
the
yeah.
humans, the Silverhands,
Yep.
the Hamadryads, the Lutrapans are humanoids, and the Fearbogs are kind of too. But yeah, the human-like for Arthurians are, because they're not even, they have a different name, but they're all humans. The silver hands are actually Tuaha, so
Yeah.
they're not humans. But the race itself is mostly human in the Arthurian realm.
I think I'm gonna end up playing a Kate Sith.
Just to be a cat.
Yep.
But dragons, man, come on.
I know, but
You
I
love
like the Kate
dragons.
Sith. I do. I really do. But the Kate Sith just look really cool, and I have a cat that's just as fuzzy as they're depicted. So
Well, to go with that, and to go with what Oldovix just said, we have to wait on that anyway, because I don't think what we have currently for the characters is going to really be what the characters look like at launch.
no,
Yeah, no.
well, some of them
in any
maybe,
way.
but
I don't think it's going to be like universes off, but I think what we have now is very much placeholder content.
Yes.
I'm curious to see how, with the rehabilitation, how the components that exist through the class streams they
Mhm.
did change, if at all,
True.
or how drastic with the new rehabilitation and with all the time that's passed since then.
Yeah.
That
If
is
what we're
true.
even talking about is even relevant at this point.
It has been at least a year since they announced all these class abilities and everything. I would assume most of them have survived intact. They're really just changing the means. I don't think they were so much changing
Yeah,
the
engine
ability
behind
focus
them.
itself.
But the effects themselves might be the same.
But we may see some more interesting versions, like maybe because they've talked about expanding the ability and what they can do
Yes.
with the abilities. So we may see some more interesting variations on them.
Yeah.
We may seem strategically just a completely different theme of fighting for some of these realms as well through the course of beta and seeing how things progress.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. But we've pretty much covered the topic now. I do want to thank everybody for coming out and hanging out with us. And if you're watching this on YouTube, for liking, commenting, and subscribing, all that kind of good stuff. We will be on again in 2 weeks to
What is
talk
that
about
episode?
the Tuatha De Danann, or however you pronounce that word. The
Tuatha De Danann.
TDD. Yes, that, whatever.
The
I
TDD.
can't be bothered to say that. Hopefully, we will have a TDD guild leader with us, and there'll be like 4 of us on here, and it'll just be a giant mess.
In the middle.
But I do want to get some TDD player perspective in here, besides
Absolutely.
just us. And if we can't, then we'll just talk about it.
I'll reference my article I made. I made an article on all the realms, so I did some research at least.
But till then, peace out.
See you next.
Thank you for
Thank you
dropping
for
by.
watching.
And we're
Bye.
still here.
Yeah.
But
Please
for
stop the
everybody else,
recording.
I want to say hello
Recording
to the other people. Unfortunately, I forgot to hit record. It just means I have to strip it off Twitch, which is going to be a huge pain in my rear, but I can do it. It's just going to take me a long time. So I'm going to say hello to the other people who are here. This is only the second time I've forgotten to record, so out of
True.
38 episodes, that's pretty good. Let's see. Hello, Destech, Deverak, Vagrant, Glaccoon
Versus the other races, I actually like the. I think I'd be more
the Savage,
impressed and following of the Viking architecture.
V's and Whack.
I'm actually interested in what the TDD architects are gonna come up with.
Yeah. Honestly, I really want to see what's going to happen with the Arthurians, because I'm really hoping they take some artistic license with it and make it interesting
Yes.
besides just here's a freaking castle and it looks like a medieval castle. Enjoy.
Yeah, I agree.
At least come up with
even
some
Vikings will have some of that too, but conceptually
Yeah.
they're so dragon oriented. A lot of the concept art that's been going on
Mhm.
has been dragon themed with them, which I really like. And I
Yeah.
even asked a question about that yesterday. It's like, so the Vikings seem to have a lot of dragon themed things. Are dragons a universal threat to all realms, or is there something else going on? And I got a resounding no comment. Even though
to
Mark
be
couldn't talk, he smiled very heavily
Yeah.
and was like, no comment.
Though, to
He
be
just put the
fair,
no
I
up.
think he's given us a no comment every time we've asked about dragons, period.
Yes.
So. And Sturm. I'm like, can I get some Sturm info? And he's like,
So
no.
there's something going on there. I like the
I'm like,
mystery,
"Ugh."
but I want to know.
Mhm.
Yeah, send some TDD people my way so I don't have
Yeah.
to track them down. Because otherwise, I'm going to grab whichever seems the most active, and I'm going to say, hi, will you come on my show? That's what I did
There you go.
for Arthurians, and they both said, I can't.
That would be cool. I'd like a dragon egg, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dragon pets.
make some
One
dragon
game-
egg salad.
One game tried to hype for playing a dragon,
Yeah.
which never came to fruition. I was really hyped for that game.
Are we talking about the
until
same
they
game?
scrapped the dragons.
I don't know.
It
Horizon?
was Horizon.
Yeah. Yeah, freaking.
You could they
I played that
they
game for
scrapped-
one
they
week.
scrapped the
I
two
never saw
races
another
that
player, I
was
swear.
interested in playing. Dragons and vampires.
I made a dragon character. I got in the game, and I was like, I'm going to play this. Where are all the other players? I'm confused. Why am I alone in an MMO? I swear there was like no one on my server.
Yeah.
Game was so bad. Failed so hard.
Yeah.
I've come to accept my butt wings. I'm pretty sure they are going to move the wings because I don't think they want people making fun of the butt wings forever.
I don't know.
But
They,
I don't mind the butt wings. I'm just like, nah. They're like, you've got fart wings. I'm like, well, you know what? Flap, flap, mofo. Yeah. I'll
I
flap my
don't
farts
think
to
they'll
you.
move.
I don't think either.
Yeah, I think they're there.
They're here to stay on your butt.
Well, those wings, period, don't make sense to lift the body. They're not going to do anything, so. They're vestigial.
Yeah.
Ooh, good question. Vampires and werewolves, what realm would they fit in if they were in the game?
Well, we have a certain shape-shifting class.
Yeah.
We do.
That kind of has the same thing.
But
Kind
The
of.
werewolf. Yeah, I could see them having a wolf
Called
form.
the child of Loki.
Oh, I
It's
was actually
true.
gonna say. I was actually gonna. That is true, but I was actually gonna say I could see the Enchanted Knight having like a werewolf form, like a big furry wolf form.
No.
I
Not
see a
really like
vampire
They have
As a
already child of
TDD.
Loki, yeah.
and a werewolf as Arthurian.
But
Or
they
reversed,
actually turn into
but-
an actual wolf, not like a big like lycanthrope or thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the gift of Fenrir for the child of Loki.
Oh,
to
that's
turn
true.
in- But I
That's
thought
a
they turned
wolf
into
form.
an actual.
They do have a wolf form, yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. They have a wolf form, not like a wolf man hybrid form.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is where I was saying I could see the Enchanted Knight having like a big wolf man hybrid form. That would be kind of.
I don't know.
Vampires,
however, yeah.
Now the TDD already they're it's not a
The
vampire,
Dark
but
Soul.
they're
The bin chip.
stealth character. Their stealth character
stealth,
already
yeah.
has very vampiric abilities. I was kind of
red
pissed
cap.
off
The red
because I
cap,
saw it and I
yeah.
was like, I wanna play it.
And the Black Rider also has a very kind of
Vampiric.
vampiric, yeah,
Yeah.
style of character.
I'm not surprised that it feels like they do get a fair amount of refund requests because people suck.
Yep.
That's my answer. That
People
suck.
are impatient.
There are
Just
some
is.
some people have good reasons for doing it. I mean, it has been a long
Yeah.
time. Some people are like, "Oh, I really need that money." or
Yes,
whatever.
but it's
Um,
also because most
but-
people have no freaking idea of how long it actually takes to make an MMO, because most AAA MMO start hyping their game and even just talking about the fact that they're making the game 3 or 4 years into the development of the game and have about 10 times the size of the team.
Yeah, I'm really glad that they're offering the refunds because I think it's a really good message and everything. But a part of my issue with people asking for the refunds is that you gave those for kicks, especially the people that gave them during Kickstarter. I'm like, the whole point of Kickstarter is to fund development for things.
Yeah.
And so you're giving that money to fund development, and then you
Because
come back
it's
over
still
later
funding.
after they've been working
Mhm.
on it and spending that money. And you're like, no, I don't want to fund your development anymore. And you're like, but you already did. You already gave it to them specifically to make the game. They're still making the game, so you shouldn't be taking the money back.
Ulvik, for me, it's easy. Black Rider.
For the Arthurians.
For the Arthurians.
Black Rider. I want to fight with a sword made of my spine.
it is a cool. Like I saw that and I was just, that is so awesome. I love that class. I want it. Probably for me, it would be the red cap because they're vampiric and I want them.
I'm torn at the moment between the Morgan,
Yeah, Morgan.
which is like the spirit mage of the TDD, or even the Slaughter Wolf, the other spirit mage on the Vikings, is really cool.
I like
I like the Arisen also.
That is true. They're pretty cool. But I actually like the Spectre. I like some of the things that they have.
Yeah.
And they're actually like the most... Not the most scouty, because I guess the Wisp kind of is, but they're the most like a normal kind of stealth scout looking character. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no. I stand with the Black Rider.
I'm having to really think about that, because what I'm really thinking about is what would I replace? You know, like which one would I go? I want to take that, and I'm willing to get rid of the one from the Arthurians, because even like the Flame Warden, I think they're important to the Arthurians. I wouldn't get rid of them, even though I'm not a huge fan.
I would swap out the
Enchanted Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Enchanted Knight.
I do too, but I would take
I
one
do
of the
too.
other ones.
But yeah, I would swap the Enchanted Knight either for the
maybe the Child of Loki.
the Black Rider, or the Child of Loki.
Actually, I could see the Black Rider still working pretty well with the Arthurians.
Yeah.
Because of all their sustain, and that's kind of its thing, is being able to get in combat, then out, and still stay alive, and they could probably help it a lot with that. I don't know.
Everything else is just really geared thematically towards what they're supposed to be.
Yes.
Exactly, and that's the point.
Works right.
The Black Rider's so cool.
Yes.
When they announced that class, I was like, "Oh, I'm so mad."
Yeah, same.
Was that one in the red cap?
Why isn't it
both
that
TDD classes?
I hope they do a similar style of announcement and releasing classes for all the new classes that they're going to add, and
later
with the silhouettes and the hype and guessing about what it is. That'd be that was fun.
I don't expect we'll get any of those for a while, but
it's true. We'd have another a black guard, a black knight, a black rider.
Then will be the Black Realm.
The Black Realm.
That is true. People never forgave them for us having both Black Guard and Black Knight. They were just like, "Oh, what's the new black thing that the Arthurians get?" The Black Archer. The Black Mage.
The Dark Caller.
Black Magic.
Well, the Spectre is kind of black also.
Instead of the Dread Caller, the Void Caller. Void is black.
Just the Dark Caller.
Shadow Stalker.
Night Stalker. The realm of ultimate blackness.
They already have the Shadow Walker for the Vikings.
What would you steal for races? Oh, that's a little bit easier. Because I can probably think of some of those.
The dwarves.
Actually,
how do you pronounce that? The Vergar?
Is
the D silent?
Yeah. No, it's the Vergar.
The
Vergar.
I want to play
something like that. Yeah.
I want to be a dwarf.
Hamadryad for me.
I actually have no race in there that actually appeal to me aside from the Arthurian ones. Actually, maybe the Silver Hand, but that would be a stretch for me. Most of the races actually in the Arthurian are for me my preferred races.
It makes no sense for the Hamadryads to be on the Arthurian realm, but that's the race I originally wanted to play, and we decided to go Arthurian, so I was like, well, I'm going to play the Sturm and have butt wings. Screw you guys. I wanted to play the Hamadryad. I wanted to have a tail and little antennas and be like...
The only one I might be, but there's absolutely no information on it. Would be the Ulfednar,
Yeah.
but there's zero
Who
information on those.
knows?
Even their
They should
look
just-
seems unintentional and temporary.
Yeah,
They should
exactly.
just take inspiration from what is it? Thor 2, the Dark World. I think it is. They have those giant berserker guys. They should just take that.
Yeah.
Because that's
Stick
what
it
I
there.
picture when I think of the Ulfwenar, actually. Got like
Yeah, no,
permanent
other than
armor
that-
fused into them, and
Originally I liked the Valkyrie just for the name, and then I looked at it and I was like, I don't want feathers on my head.
why
That
not,
looks
man?
stupid. Because that
Got
looks
that
stupid.
excellent French plumage.
That looks dumb.
They are. They're waiting for a couple of races.
Yeah, races are definitely not high priority right now.
Yeah.
I think if they put out a new race right now, some people would revolt. How dare you work on races?
It's not in their user story list at the moment.
Some people would be like, how dare you work on art and stuff for new races? And I'd be over here going, and we still don't have lore for the stir. I'm
Darn
so
it, Max.
Anyway, it's been a good chat. Thanks
Yeah.
everybody for coming and hanging out,
Yep.
talking Arthurians. I'm going to go and download this video and then edit it and then save it and then upload it because I
You know
forgot
you're
to
not going to
record
edit it. You're just going
I
to.
am because I want to cut. I'll have to cut this chatter off the end and the chatter off the beginning. And we actually talked for a while at the beginning, so I'm gonna have to go hack that off.
You're gonna hack the sausages?
Sucks. Maybe I won't upload it till tomorrow so I can play PUBG.
There you go.
Forget it, you guys. I'm gonna upload it tomorrow. I got nothing to do on Sunday. Or wait till late tonight when I'm gonna go to bed and let it run all night.
Yeah.
Though the rendering for the video will probably take like 20 or 30 minutes anyway, if not longer.
Probably longer.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Thank
Ciao.
you for being here, guys.
Thank you. See ya.
Later.